And star power has nothing to do. See, people get the two mixed up. You know, you can be the best fighter.
Well, that's the point.
You can be the best fighter, but you can be the biggest star. You can be the best fighter, but you can be the biggest star. But you can be the biggest star. You can be the biggest star.
So you have no intentions on proving that Gervonta Davis may be the best fighter. You more want him to be the biggest star.
Now, this interview conducted in February of last year pretty much encapsulates what's on a lot of people's minds right now, that it's not the money team's intention to make Gervonta Davis, mold him into being the best fighter that he can be, so much as to give off the appearance that he's better than what he is by amplifying his celebrity. I mean, that's pretty much what Leonard Ellaby said. Leonard Ellaby, who actually handles the career of Gervonta Davis, that there's a difference between being the best fighter and being a big star. And those two things, as far as Leonard Ellaby is concerned, are mutually exclusive and have nothing to do with each other.
According to him.
You don't hear Leonard Ellaby running around telling people that Gervonta Davis is the best fighter in the world so much as he's the biggest star. Or at least they aim to make him into the biggest star. And you know what? It makes sense that that's their aim. It makes sense that they pour more time, more attention into the smoke, the mirrors, and the overall production than actually molding the fighter.
Yep.
Grooming the fighter.
Yep.
Because as far as fighters go, well, Davis didn't prove to be the best fighter at 130. He skipped out on fighting most of those guys. And here at 135, he certainly can't be one of the best fighters at 135. Not going 12 rounds with a one-legged man. A one-legged 38-year-old man who ruptured his Achilles tendon, yet still found the time, the wherewithal, to buy himself another 10 rounds.
The fuck?
Buy himself another 10 rounds against what?
What?
What's one of the best fighters? No, best fighters? I don't think so. I don't think so. Because imagine any other fighter in that situation.
One leg.
In all the varying weight classes that there are in the sport of boxing, imagine that you're the guy opposite the ring of Artur Beterbiev. Imagine you're opposite the ring, that guy, and you rupture your Achilles tendon. Do you see yourself going another 10 rounds with that guy? Because I don't.
No fucking way.
And the same underlying principle rings true in just about any weight class with just about any elite level fighter you can think of. I mean, just imagine a fighter, a 38-year-old fighter. Okay? Just imagine a 38-year-old fighter suffering a ruptured Achilles tendon, and he's got, I don't know, Callum Smith opposite the ring of him, or David Benavidez opposite the ring of him, or Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez opposite the ring of him. 38-year-old fighter suffers a ruptured Achilles tendon in the second round of a professional boxing match.
Bad spot.
Your ability to shake and bake your opponent is severely impaired because you can't shift your weight to your back foot. Your Achilles tendon is ruptured. Your ability to use the ring, navigate it, to buy yourself some time and get out of trouble, that's compromised because, once again, your Achilles tendon is ruptured.
Oh.
In most situations, with most elite level fighters, the guy with the ruptured Achilles tendon is a sitting duck.
He's food.
But that is with most elite, emphasis on elite, that is with most elite level fighters. Whereas in the case of Gervonta Davis, what has become crystal clear is that he is not one of these elite level fighters. Because if he were, last night's fight wouldn't have went 12 fucking rounds. Davis is something, but an elite fighter, that's what he ain't. Just so happens that, you know, Leonard Ellaby and the people at the money team, well, they were never focused on making Gervonta Davis into an elite level fighter to begin with. It was their focus to make him into a star, not the best fighter in the world, and we can see that in the matchmaking, folks.
We sure can.
And you think they were focused on making Davis into the best fighter he could be by matching him against the guys they've been matching him with for the past 2 years?
Of course not.
No! They were keeping Davis away from the very best fighters.
And they still are.
You see, folks, what the people over there at TMT, and in many ways at the PBC in many situations, what they're attempting to do is to replicate a formula. They want to replicate the Mayweather formula, not realizing that they're missing a key ingredient. And it is that Mayweather, Floyd Money Mayweather, had the work ethic that none of these fighters have. None of them, not a single one. Not a Gervonta Davis, not an Adrian Broner, not a Keith Thurman, not a Danny Garcia, not an Errol Spence. He had a work ethic that is unique
All its own.
to him. You understand? Mayweather was known, Floyd Mayweather Jr. was known as a gym rat. A man who doesn't balloon in weight between fights, fighting fit whenever the situation calls for it. Whereas these guys, you know what I mean? Look at how Keith Thurman's holding up over the holidays, all right? All right? Look at Gervonta Davis, how he looks between fights. Look at Errol Spence. Okay, this guy's one ho-ho from being a fucking middleweight between fights. Broner, I ain't even gotta tell you about Broner. A prevalent pattern is emerging over there at the PBC, and it is affecting their roster of fighters, their stars, their premier boxing champions. Every single one of them seems to be falling victim to this pattern, and it is a pattern to where a young, undefeated, primed fighter like Marcus Brown can see himself losing to the likes of a Jean Pascal, a guy who's on, you know, the back end of his career, is in decline. He's on the other side of his mid-30s, yet somehow this is the guy that wants it more. So he beats the young, undefeated fighter in a Marcus Brown, who you would imagine is sharp enough, astute enough, that this should be, you know, another day at the office, but it doesn't turn out that way.
What's going on?
A pattern is emerging that sees the likes of a Keith Thurman drop a decision and get himself dropped by a very aged Manny Pacquiao, who has nothing left to prove in this sport, yet apparently he wanted it more than Keith did. And at the end of it, only one of them left a full-fledged champion. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't the young, undefeated fighter. Greatness stood at the door of Errol Spence, who could have so chosen to go ahead with that Terrence Crawford fight, but instead chose to fight a fat lightweight because the fat lightweight can help him sell tickets, I guess. I mean, that has to be the reason, because Mikey Garcia, he ain't had no belt, he wasn't proven as a welterweight, yet Errol Spence up until that point was telling us it's strap season. So what strap did you fight Mikey Garcia for? Because last I checked, he didn't hold any straps in the welterweight division, but you prioritized that fight over
Crawford.
The Crawford fight, okay? This is what's going on. This is the byproduct of this pattern. The question then becomes, why are we seeing it? What is happening to these fighters?
I can tell you.
Well, what's happening is they're being sold a dream. A bill of goods by a con man. A guy who's telling them that he can get them Mayweather money, knowing full well that these fighters don't have Mayweather's talent, his work ethic.
He knows they ain't got it.
And after a while, the fighters themselves begin to realize that no, that they ain't got it. That they're not going to be the next Floyd. But by the time they realize it, they've grown comfortable, complacent, fat, and happy. Not the ideal psyche, not the ideal psychology for a fighter who needs to have a competitive drive, who needs to have that edge, wanting to be better than what else is out there, than who else is out there. By the time these guys realize that they ain't the next Floyd, the fire in their belly has been extinguished. It's been extinguished by innumerable showcase fights and tune-up fights and easy ones and hand picks and situations that are more motivated
By selling an image.
pitching a product as opposed to molding a fighter, grooming a champion, making a legend.
Legends.
I mean, do you think anybody's gonna look back at the career of an Adrian Broner and say, yeah, this guy was one of the best, man, this guy was one of the legends, you know? You think they're gonna talk about him in the same respect that people talk about a Wilfredo Benitez?
No.
A Sugar Ray Leonard?
No.
A Roberto Duran?
No.
A Marvin Hagler? A Thomas the Hitman Hearns? Do you think that anybody's gonna look at the career of an Adrian Broner and use his name in the same sentence as those names? No, of course not. But those are the kind of fighters you got over there at the PBC. The kind of fighters that really aren't even focused on fighting. They're focused on the overnight celebrity, the 15 minutes of fame, the shortcut to the Mayweather money. But you're not Floyd Mayweather, and you're not gonna be. You know, take Gervonta Davis's most recent set of comments as a prime example of what I'm talking about. The kind of psychology that these fighters have and what their real aim is, what they're focused on, what they're actually being groomed to be. This kid, he thinks he's the cash cow of the division already. He thinks that he's the top dog and no one is above him. Yet he hasn't actually proved anything in the division yet. These fighters are out of touch with reality. They're out of touch with boxing itself. Because so far, all you've done at 135 is go 12 rounds with a shot fighter. A shot fighter who only had one good leg to stand on. And you think this makes you the top dog of the division? What, selling a couple of tickets at an armory in Maryland? Or selling a couple of tickets in Atlanta? I mean, how does Gervonta Davis domestic success, how does his domestic success in his backyard compare with the success that Inouye is having in his backyard? Do you have any fucking idea how many millions upon millions of people tuned in to see his fight with Nonito Donaire? But you don't hear Naoya Inoue running around telling people that he's the star. I'm the cash cow, man. No, Naoya's focused on the fighting. He's focused on unifying. And that's why his success domestically greatly dwarfs Gervonta Davis's success domestically. I mean, it's not even a contest. It's not even a question. Do you realize that while Gervonta Davis is stroking his own ego, telling himself that he's the cash cow for selling 14,000 tickets in Atlanta, Vasyl Lomachenko and Luke Campbell sold out well over that at the O2 Arena in the UK. 20,000 tickets sold. They packed the house, fighting each other. Yet it's Gervonta Davis stroking his own ego by ticket sales. I mean, this is the kind of celebration that I'm always talking about. The celebration of mediocrity that is not only enabled by those out there who handle the careers of these fighters, but by the fans of these fighters as well. You know, there are people out there that are making all manner of excuses for Gervonta Davis to underperform against what was a one-legged shot fighter. They're just saying, oh, the kid had a hard night. No. What's really going on is the kid isn't what you think he is. He's not what you believe him to be. You've spent so much time hyping up this fighter for reasons that aren't even associated to boxing, you understand? Because what they like about Gervonta ain't got a goddamn fucking thing to do with boxing. They like him for every other reason but
fucking boxing.
Boxing, okay? Their affinity for him has very little to do with boxing. Yet they find themselves constantly defending this guy. And it's really got more to do with
egg on their fucking face.
Feeling of embarrassment. You've spent so much time building up this guy that you're invested now. Now it's not even about him so much as it's about you. That's why you see all these freaks, all these mutants, trying to make it seem like,
oh, this is normal.
It was perfectly normal for Gamboa, a guy in Gamboa's condition, to see the 12th round. That somehow Gervonta Davis is this elite level killer, but at the same time it's okay that Gamboa went 12 rounds with him. When that couldn't be further from the truth. A guy in Gamboa's condition should not see the 12th round against any elite level fighter, anywhere from 130 to 135 to 140. It shouldn't happen. Not if the man opposite the ring of Yuriorkis Gamboa is in fact an elite level fighter. So if Gamboa does end up seeing the 12th round, that can only mean that the man opposite the ring of him is not an elite level fighter. But, you know, Davis has a defense team, like many of these hype jobs often do. He's got a defense team. He's got a bunch of guys working hard right now to make excuses for him. And these just so happen to be the same guys who months ago were berating Vasyl Lomachenko after the Pedraza fight. These were the guys that had the most shit to say about that fight. And what was the premise for their criticisms, their critiques? A triangle theory of all things, which we all know doesn't actually hold any water in the sport of boxing, but these guys don't know shit about the sport of boxing. So of course they're gonna run off of triangle theories. And what were they saying? They were saying that since Davis finished Pedraza sooner than Vasyl Lomachenko did, that makes Davis better than Loma. But if I apply that logic, if I apply this theory,
this triangle theory,
that would then have to mean that a journeyman with 12 losses in Castellanos is better than Gervonta Davis. Why? Well, Castellanos wrapped up Gamboa in less rounds than it took Gervonta Davis.
5 rounds less.
Gamboa didn't get to see the 12th, the 11th, the 10th, the 9th, or the 8th against Castellanos. He didn't make it out of the 7th, whereas against Gervonta, he almost made it the full course. He didn't stop him till the 12th round. So by the logic that you guys were using months ago, after the Pedraza fight, you guys are saying that Castellanos must be better than Gervonta Davis. He would have to be, because he did it sooner. 5 rounds sooner.
If we go by your logic.
Understand that if we have arrived here today, it is due to the celebration of mediocrity. Usage of smoke, mirrors, productions, to sell us this false image of a fighter. Fighters do not truly possess the competitive spirit, as the fire in their belly has been extinguished with promises of money and an ill-gotten fortune through perpetuating lies.
Pugilism. And pugilism is prize fighting. So money is always going to be a motivating factor. I mean, it is. But what separates pugilism from other professions is, look, there's lots of different ways of getting money. You understand? There's all kinds of different rackets that you can get involved in to where you'll get your money. But what separates boxing from those rackets is the mindset, the competitive drive, the makeup of the fighter, not just physically, but psychologically. A perpetual state of war that keeps you at odds with all others that you are in competition with. Whereas the environment that they create over there at the TMT and the PBC, the environment that they create for their fighters, it's almost a self-defeating environment. Create these fat and happy guys that think they're stars already, so they go out there
and underperform.
They're not the least bit hungry, because you guys have been telling them, hey, stars already. Guys that have never even been on pay-per-view, they're packing these local arenas and they think they're top dogs. They think they're all king shit. I mean, you got a banner called Premier Boxing Champions with a stable of fighters that don't put any value, any actual value on being champions. Gervonta Davis is marketing himself as some kind of a champion, but he's holding the lesser version of somebody else's title. And that somebody else is somebody that he don't want nothing to do with. He don't want to know about that guy. He don't want to go in there with that guy. We're going on 2 to 3 years in running that Gervonta Davis just can't find the interest to fight Vasyl Lomachenko. And these are the kinds of fighters that this environment breeds. The kind of fighters that, you know what, they're really not that interested in fighting. So look, you can have all manner of guys trying to explain away yesterday's piss-poor performance. You can have all these guys with their YouTube channels uploading all sorts of content to try to explain this away. You could put your index finger up in the sky and try to block out the sun. But you're only doing that from your perspective. The rest of us that are standing around, we can see it just fine. The same way we can all see that Gervonta Davis ain't what you guys think he is.
I've been saying it.
But the difference between guys like me and you is I've been saying it the whole time. I knew that before yesterday's fight. So if you find yourself getting upset at me pointing that out, it's because you didn't know that before yesterday's fight.